If you've been looking at the AI space for a while, you have probably come across agentic workflows and you might not know what they are. So if you are in HR or talent acquisition and you're trying to figure out how agentic workflows apply to you, this video is for you. What I'm going to do is show you in 10 minutes how you can build your own workflow using very low cost or free tools that will actually create an end-to-end process and demo how you can actually do something as simple as candidate reviews before you actually need to move them through to screening. So to show you how it works, I'm just going to click straight over. This is the workflow we're going to set up. It's a very simple workflow and we're going to go into detail on how you can set this up yourself. But we're going to drop a candidate into our Google Sheet. Now the Google Sheet here is simulating what would normally happen with an applicant tracking system. So you would normally connect your ATS up to this so that when you get a new candidate applying, they're actually going to move through the pipeline. All we've done here is dropped in the candidate name, the current role, years of experience, job title, resume text, and job requirements. And what that then does is it triggers this workflow where we go through a number of different steps. We analyze the candidate, we then clean up the response, we then decide if they're a strong match or not, and then we give a Slack message to our recruiting pipeline channel, which gives you the overview of the candidate, strengths, gaps, and recommendation for what to do next. So that's the basics of what we're going to cover today. We're going to walk through it step by step. You've got access to all the resources in the description below, so please sign up. And then there's one thing I'm going to cover right at the very end, which is a little bit of a secret that will hopefully help you if you want to do anything with this kind of workflow. So firstly, we're going to delete this so that we don't have anything clogging up and we can see what actually happens when we build this from scratch. And we're going to go back to the workflow. We're going to come out of this and actually go back to my personal account and we're going to create a new workflow from scratch. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it with the resources I've provided. So the first thing we need to do before we get started is make sure we've got everything that we need. You need a laptop or a desktop, whatever it is that you use. You're going to need access to 3 different tools. So one is a automation workflow. I'm using n8n for this example. You can sign up for a free 2-week trial. I've heard people do this same approach with Zapier, with the new Google Gemini workspaces. So whatever you have is fine. But n8n is something that was recommended to me as something that is now being rolled out to a lot of talent acquisition teams. So hopefully this will be helpful for you. You're going to need a API key to one of the LLM models. Now I'm using Anthropic for this demo. That's the one I would recommend. I think the kind of cost to benefit ratio there is very good and the quality of the model is great. This costs less than 1 cent per candidate. So it's actually very cheap to demo it. At scale, maybe you want to consider something else that's more cost effective, but I think for what we're doing, this is really helpful. And then the third thing is going to be a Slack workspace. Doing this demo as if you were sending this to Slack. Maybe you'll send it to email. Maybe you want to send it elsewhere, but assuming that everyone's working in Slack together, this is actually a really good way to build this kind of collaborative workflow in. So we're going to walk through every step and we'll start by setting up the workflow. So you can see here I already have everything set up in n8n. All you need to do is go to the website and click on sign, get started. And that's going to give you the ability to create an account. You don't need to put a credit card in and you get that 2-week trial just to kind of figure things out. That's all you need for this demo. Once we've got this set up, we're then going to open the canvas. I'm going to add a new workflow. So you can see I already have a couple of workflows running as I was testing this out, but we'll just create a new workflow here and we're going to create it from scratch. And the way that we're actually going to build the workflow out is very simple. Yeah, you can build this out yourself. You can play around with the steps. But one of the beauties of n8n is that you can actually import directly from a file. And so in the resource pack that you're going to get with this, you'll see there's 2 different files here. And these are JSON files, which means that they're actually structured data sets. So the one we're going to work with today is the Google Sheets trigger. If you want to use your ATS, the webhook trigger process is probably the best place to start with. I'm not going to go into that today because there's a little bit more nuance in how you configure it, but we'll do the Google Sheets trigger and you can see immediately we have the same workflow that we just demoed, but with a bunch of these kind of tags that are going to show us that we need to actually fix some elements. So we have our canvas already set up and now we're going to need to get all of the API keys set up so that we can actually connect this to our Google Sheets, to our Anthropic API and to Slack as well. So first thing we're going to do is go to Claude. So the links in the bottom below is platform.claude.com. When you go in here, you're gonna manage the API keys. I'd say before you do that, what I would do is go into the limits section and then billing. and set up your billing. So what I would normally do is have kind of a $5 minimum setup. You can set it up to auto reload, which is what I've done here. If you're on you want to configure this if you're already on an enterprise account, but assuming that you're doing this personally, you just want to make sure you've got $5 of credits. The whole demo is going to cost less than 10 cents. If you run it through a number of different candidates. So I won't worry too much, but one thing I would set up early on is this monthly limit. You can see my limit is $100 a month, and actually I'm hopefully doing a lot more testing, but you can see how little I've used. This is March 25th right now, and I've used less than $1 in the whole month. So it's not a huge amount, even when you're experimenting like this. Once you've got that set up, go ahead and create your API key. You can see I've already set up my API key here, set up some demos. You can see in all of the experimentation to get this up and running, I've spent 7 cents. All you're going to do is create API key, you want a default, and then name your key. For this one, I've just named mine n8n recruiting demo, name it whatever you like. And that's going to give you your key. You're going to get this random key, and you can copy it, and you're going to need to put that somewhere safe because you'll never be able to access that again. So I put it in a secure text file, maybe somewhere that no one's going to accidentally stumble across it. If you're just doing this for demo, drop it into a Google Sheet or something. Don't give anyone access, but this is going to be something we're going to refer back to later. So I'm just going to delete that before I forget so that nobody else can use it. But I have my n8n recruiting demo already live. So once we've got this set up, the next thing we're going to do is actually sort out our Slack channel. So in Slack, I already created a recruiting pipeline channel here. So I just created this new channel. I'm the only member of it right now. I do actually already have the bot loaded in. But once that's set up, we can then configure the Slack API. So in here, you can see I've already got the recruiting bot set up. This is just api.slack.com. You want to create a new app, and you want to create it from scratch. So we're going to name I already have the recruiting bot set up. So we'll just name it something different. And I'm going to set it to my workspace because I own this workspace. So if you don't have a workspace or you don't have access, I think you can set up a free workspace to run this kind of experiment, but that's going to be something that you might want to set up yourself. And so in here, we have a number of different options, but the main things that we want to do is set up our recruiting bot. So we're going to set up auth permissions. This is going to allow it to access the Slack channel. And the way to do that is to go in and add some bot token scopes. So we're going to add them in here. And there's two that we want to add. We want to add chat write and chat write public. What this is going to allow us to do is to send messages directly to that Slack channel from this bot that we're going to add to our channel. Once this is all set up, we're going to scroll back to the top, install to Meander. And we're going to allow, and what this is then going to do, hopefully, is then allow us to add this bot to our Slack channel. So it appeared on the side already as one of the new apps. And all we're going to do here is just invite recruiting bot demo. So I already have my recruiting bot, but let's put the demo in here as well, just so that you can see that I'm not making this up. You can actually do this yourself. So recruiting bot is now a member of this channel. All right, so next thing we're going to do is go back to our workflow automation, and we're going to figure out how do we actually fix all of these errors that we have in here. One final thing that you want to do is actually get your bot user OAuth token. All right, so we'll go back to the workflow. Now we're going to add a few different things. So one of the challenges here is we need to add the right credentials. So I'll go back to my personal tab, credentials, and you can see there's 3 things that I've added. One is the Google Sheets trigger, one is the Slack account, and the Anthropic account. The Google Sheets we'll add in a little bit later, but the Slack account, all you need to do is create credential, go down to Slack API. You want the basic API, not the OAuth 2, and just walk through the process to do that. Same with the Anthropic account. And once you've done that, if we go back into the workflow that we've just created, we should be able to just double click on this. We have already set this one up. So all we want to do here is replace by URL and just copy the URL from this. You don't need to make this public, which is really important. And you just paste the URL into here. And then what I like to do here is actually pick the sheet from the list, because then you know it's loading the Google Sheet directly. So you've got the URL, you've got the sheet, and you can do a fetch test event, and that'll just see if you're actually connected directly. So no Google Sheets data found. That's because we don't have anything in there right now, which is fine. So we know that at least that's set up. We've removed the warning flag from here. I'll do the same thing with Claude. So we're going to double click here. All we're going to do is change this generic credential type to predetermined. And we're going to search for our Anthropic. And we have our Anthropic account already set up because we already did that. And we're just going to, again, run that to see if we get any errors. So it executed successfully. So now we've removed the warning flag from there. Same in here, we want to just make sure that we're actually, we've connected our Slack account API, that's correct. We're going to send a message to the channel. We actually preloaded the simple text message, so I'll show you what that does. You can go in and edit that later, but basically you can update the way that this process works. But for the demo, we're just going to leave this as it is. So now we've checked that, we've removed the warning flags from there. So now the workflow should work. And what we're going to do to test it is actually, again, drop the same. So we want to make sure that we're actually sending it to our, we're sending it to our Slack account. So the one thing I didn't do here actually is to change the Slack API to the new recruiting bot. So it's going to come from recruiting bot, not recruiting bot demo, which is totally fine. You'll obviously kind of update that as you go through and create your Slack credentials. But we're going to go to our recruiting pipeline. I'm going to drop this candidate into here. So now we have Maria Chen as our candidate. And I'm going to execute the workflow. When this is published, this will actually execute regularly, and I'm going to show you that in a few seconds. But we're just going to test to make sure it works. So it found one item, and what this is doing is it takes that data set that we've just put into our Google Sheet. It's then sending it to Anthropic. It's running the prompts that we actually generated. So if I double click into here, you can see what input we got and how it's actually analyzing that. What it's then doing before we go on is actually going through this cleaning step. Sometimes the output that you get from an API is not always in the format that you want it in. So what we've done here is actually just create an additional step that's just going to clean that up and so reduce the amount of errors that we're going to have downstream. Just use the one that we've created in the resources. But if you want to dig into that at some point in the future, feel free. And then here is just a simple yes, no, was this a strong match or not? And if it was a strong match, it's going to send them to this Slack message. If it's not, it's going to send this to need review. If we go back over, we can see that this just came in 1 minute ago. Actually, we've got 2 in here, so I think it triggered twice. So this came from the recruiting bot. We now have our candidate coming through, and we've scored them based on the data that we have. We'll delete this, and we'll just test another candidate, just to show you what it looks like when we don't have a strong candidate come through. And again, we'll go back. I'm going to manually execute the workflow. We'll just see if that goes through. So, and it just takes a few seconds. This is just like creating a prompt in a typical chat GPT window and then passing it through a bunch of processes. But instead of having to copy and paste, it's running automatically. We've seen that this workflow showed that we need review. So we can go back and see, okay, James Whitfield came in, only had a score of 3 of 10. I'm going to pass on this candidate. And these are the reasons why. And so this is all set up now. The next stage will be to actually publish this. We just published the version. And what this then allows us to do is just set this to monitor continuously. So if I double click into here, we can see that what it's going to do is actually check that Google Sheet every minute to see if we have any new candidates come through. And we're going to test to make sure that's working. So we're going to remove everything from the sheet just so that we have a blank canvas. I'm going to go into our Slack and I'm going to just delete all the messages in here. This is just going to give us a clean slate. And then now we have kind of nothing in there. I'm just going to post James Whitfield again in here. And what we're hoping to see is this will trigger automatically and we'll get a notification in Slack that we've got a new candidate come through. And then that's going to allow us to then go in and review that candidate with the recommendation that we already have in place. So this is the really end-to-end workflow. The way that I would think about this moving forward is what is the kind of type of workflow that you need in order to do the job the most effectively? Like what is it that you're doing regularly enough that this kind of workflow would help? And so this is a simple example. I get a lot of people asking what kind of resume screening tools are available. Actually, this one is very low cost. You can build it yourself. And what I really like about this is that you can actually go into the Claude prompt and you can edit this prompt so that you can create something that is more custom to what you're looking for. You can change the model, you can experiment. This is using Sonnet 4, but you can experiment with different models and see what gives you better results. You can create better filters for, what's a strong match, what's a weak match. And actually this is already triggered, so we can see that James Whitfield went through the process and we have the same kind of output. But this is just showing us what happens, and we'll just for completeness, we'll just add in Maria Chen as well. All this Google Sheet is doing is simulating the database from an ATS. So as your candidates apply through your ATS, or if you're using a Notion sheet or just a simple Google form, actually a Google form will drop candidates into a structured format in your sheet. And this is just monitoring that. It could be every minute, it could be every hour. You probably don't need kind of minute by minute updates, but essentially batching these processes and kind of giving you recommendations for all the candidates that are coming through. And this is kind of really a very simple process, but hopefully will save a bunch of time. If you're doing kind of initial pass on candidates, you can see it's already come through while I was talking, so it happens so quickly. And once you've got this configured, you can then start to think about all different branches. So, if someone's a definite no, maybe they just get a disposition. Maybe you send a webhook directly back to your ATS, and that then issues a disposition. Maybe it has a pause for 3 hours first before it sends one back. If it's a definite yes, maybe it just sends a scheduling link out to the candidate so they can get an interview scheduled as quickly as possible. If it's a maybe that triggers a manual review where you actually do send it to a Slack channel and say, hey, this candidate needs a review. Maybe it sends it directly to the hiring manager, so it actually takes that step out of the process where the recruiter has to contact the hiring manager and then they have to get back to them. And ideally what you should be able to do is use this as a co-pilot to be able to run all these processes for you. And that's really how I would think about setting this up. We can definitely go into more context later. And then with things like MCP allowing you to connect this kind of workflow to many different tools that you might be using, the opportunities for improvements here are one final thing that will be really helpful for anyone who is building this out, the kind of secret ITs right at the beginning, is if you do want to utilize this, rather than figuring out how to manually build these workflows yourself, what I would do is just explain to your ChatGPT or to your Claude chat what it is you're trying to do and have them generate that initial file for you. The resources that I'm going to provide here is actually a zip file that Claude generated for me and allowed me to just upload directly. It went through a little bit of back and forth because the first version didn't work, but you can generate the JSON file yourself, and this is going to create everything in this workflow, and all you then need to do is kind of go in and edit and configure it to exactly what you want to do. So hopefully that was helpful. We're going to go into a lot more detail in an upcoming course that we're releasing on the Meander Talent Academy. So keep your eyes peeled for that if you are interested in more of this. If you want to see more demos like this or something similar, please drop some comments below. Always looking for new ideas for what we'd like to do. But hopefully this was helpful, and we'll see you soon.